Das digitale Sofa mit Oliver Kemmann.
Hallo, herzlich willkommen zu einer weiteren Episode von Das digitale Sofa. Und heute habe ich eine doppelte Premiere. Auf der einen Seite werden wir gleich auf Englisch weitermachen. Und ich habe einen Gast aus den Niederlanden, und zwar Rick Pastoor ist da. Welcome to my show.
Yeah,
good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I thought you were going to do the last sentence in Dutch.
Yeah, I tried so.
Goedemorgen. Yeah.
Goedemorgen and welcome to my show.
Yes,
to my podcast.
Perfect. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
So cool. Yeah, Rick, I'm so pleased that you found the time to talk to me about your new book. Actually, also about you and your tremendous career. First of all, I guess, and then we talk about your book, the GRIP Methode. And yeah, but here can show it. So yeah, it's very, very interesting because it's a book helping people to structure their life. So when did you recognize that the world needs another book about structuring the life of everybody?
Yeah, so, actually the origin of this book was I worked initially as an engineer and then as a manager at a Dutch startup called Blendle. It was a journalism startup. And I was like into all of this productivity books. So I read the stuff from David Allen. Amazing guy. I spoke to him a couple of times. A great book, Getting Things Done. I love the work from Stephen Covey, 7 Habits. I read the stuff from Simon Sinek, Start With Why, and like this whole range of books about working, like how to work. And then I started to talk with my colleagues, and then they would say like, "Hey Rick, I'm so overwhelmed by all of this. Like I have a busy week. I don't know where to start. So can you give me some advice?" And I would say, "Okay. Well, read this stack of books, these 10 or 15 books, listen to these 15 podcasts that are great, that help you get along. I have a list of blogs for you to follow. There are some Twitter accounts." And then they would roll their eyes at me and say like, "Well, basically my work is like I'm already up until the neck or above in the work. So please give me 3 bullets. What is your summary? Like, what would you say to me if I'm really deep in this shit?" No, and then basically I would say to them, "Okay, well, use your calendar, use a task manager, handle email in this way, do a weekly review." Basically, do what's in the first part of the book as a list of bullets, and they would say, "Okay, that's amazing. I need that." And then I put it in a document, and I started sending more emails about that to friends and to some people around me, and that grew. And basically, that's what became the book. So it was basically a guide that I created for myself and for my team. And then gradually it expanded, and more people said like, "Hey, you should actually publish this because, this is super useful." And is it groundbreaking? Well, in a ways it is because it puts it together in a good way. But it's like the key factor of it is that it should be actionable on every page. So every page should have something in it that you can apply right away. That was my goal, and that's basically how it was put together.
So maybe we get to the beginning after we go deeper into your book. So you founded your own company age 19 or 18, I guess. And so how did it come? So why are you an entrepreneurial guy?
Yeah. So I studied information sciences, so as a programmer basically, and I did that from a very early age. I loved looking at like source code of websites, and I think this age where I grew up in, at least, where all of that source code of software but previously was not available, was suddenly it became available. So you could just right click, view source, and then copy over what other websites was doing. And I was doing that at age 10 or so. I was copying over those websites, and I was fascinated by the fact that you can just out of imagination create something on your screen that actually is visible and that you can share with others and then play with. And then over time, I started to build more projects on the side, and then decided to study it. And then in my studies, I was doing some work for some clients that I met also online. And they would say at some point, "Hey, Rick, this is all good and very nice, but I need to put some kind of a tax ID on my invoices because this is no longer something that I can legally do." So then I hooked up basically with the guy in my class, and then we said like, "Okay, let's just start a company so we can do these assignments, like we can do this properly." So we set up a company. That was basically in the second year of school. And we set up a company and started doing these assignments. And basically, we were just at school, sitting together, going to class, and then outside of class, we were working for those clients. And then that grew into, basically my first company, where I did this client work for about 6 years or so, 6-7 years. And that's basically where I learned that a client won't pay you if you are not doing the stuff that you promised, which is a no-brainer for an entrepreneur that's in there for a long time. But actually, what I found is a lot of young people, if they join a company, they know their money will show up at the end of the month, but they don't have a link to the promises that they make in their work, right? So for me, it was really a lesson then that, if stuff is not clear between me and the client, or if I don't manage my time well, I do not get the work delivered on time, which means I don't get paid, which means I don't get a salary. So it's a really direct one-to-one connection on how do I do my work and do I get paid? And I think that was, for me, very foundational in terms of how I look at work, and that it's really crucial to manage that. And that's where I started to get into getting things done. And that really helped me at that point in time to offload all the stuff, which basically one of the themes in the book as well, that we keep so much stuff in our heads, right? So all day long, we keep all kinds of things that we want in our heads, and it lives there. And obviously we are stressed by that. And that's you could call it a no-brainer, right? It's something that happens because we try to remember all the stuff. And that's also a lesson that I learned at that point, is that as soon as your client base grows, and as soon as the stuff that you need to handle, your responsibility grows, that the number of loose ends will only increase, and you cannot work hard enough to make those ends disappear. You need some kind of a system for that. Yeah, so that's actually where that started in the process of launching my first company. And then there was something else that hurt me a little bit there, and that was that at some point I felt I was doing a lot of work for clients, but I actually wanted to focus on something that resonated more with me, like building something for myself, but I was not ready to launch my own product yet. So I joined the startup that was Blendle that I mentioned very early on. So like as one of the first 10 or so employees. And that was an amazing opportunity. And I would actually also always recommend young people, like if you are in your 20s, to join a startup at an early stage. And the reason for that is that you have so many different options in a small company, because there's a lot of work that's not being done, right? So there's a lot of stuff that's on the table that's not done yet. So and I can imagine that this happens the same in your own company. But if you are a small team, someone says like, oh, we should do more, I don't know, marketing. And then there's no marketing guy. So if you are there, you can just start doing a little bit of marketing because it's already better than what it was before. You can experiment, you can make mistakes because you're not the paid marketing guy, but you can actually grow into like figuring out what does marketing mean and what can we try and who can I meet and what kind of early steps can we take. And for me, that was at Blendle was running product. So from an engineer, I started to be more involved in terms of like, hey, what's our product strategy and what's our product roadmap and how do we execute from an idea in terms of product towards something that's real, and how do I not take on all the work myself as an engineer, but how do we coordinate that in a team? And then that grew from like, okay, now I can manage my own team, but how do we scale that? So how do we have 4 teams that work on 4 different sections of the product? How do we align that? And how does this link to a company strategy? How does this fit into whatever needs there are from publishers that we worked with at that point in time? So and that's all only to visualize that, and as you can imagine, if that grows, the amount of different kind of things that you have to keep in your head, the amount of the things that you have to balance, like hiring, and also thinking about the well-being of the team, and also thinking about the well-being of the company, and if everything is aligned, there's just too many loose ends to just keep track of in my head. I needed to have some kind of a structure to think about, okay, I have only 40 hours to spend. At that point in time, I worked full-time. Now I don't anymore because I have small kids, so I want to spend more time with them as well. But then I had 40 hours. So how do I spend these 40 hours to have maximum impact. And what one of my findings was, and still is honestly, when I talk to people, is that most people do not have a clue how they spend those 40 hours. No clue. They just like start on Monday morning. They open up their mailbox and then they're like, okay, well, let's start at the top because, well, that's how you start, right? You start at the top. You start the first email. You're frustrated by that first email because it's an angry customer. And that same angry customer has been in your mailbox for a long time. So you start to deal with this angry customer. Meanwhile, there is 3 other really important projects that will hit you in the face in 2 weeks if you don't start now. But that's not screaming for your attention currently, right? So you start with the urgent stuff. And then if you continue to do that, you're always running behind. And the reason is that you're not making a conscious decision how you spend your time. You're only acting. And for me, that was something that that really transformed how I look at my calendar. Is the stuff that Stephen Covey writes about? Hey, if you want to end up at a place, you need to make you need to start with the end in mind. Like you need to begin with the end in mind, and that's and then take that with you to how you shape your time. And what better way is there than your calendar? Because your calendar is the only tool that's finite. That's as finite and limited as our lives are. So for me, that was something that was shaped and transformed how I spend my week. Because if I think about 40 hours, okay, I have 40 hours ahead of me. How do I spend this? And how do I have the biggest impact? I'm going to make some very different decisions than if I just follow my mailbox, right? So, well, that's really was a lesson as I transformed during Blendle in my roles, that I needed to be way more structured with that. And we can come to some concrete advice in a little bit. But that's what I did there. And then basically I did that to 2019. And then GRIP came out in the Netherlands early 2019. And then that really took off. So in total, there's now over 100,000 copies sold worldwide, which is still amazing. Like it's so many copies. But the key for me was like I wanted to focus on the book a little bit and on the story. So I did that in 2019 and 2020 mostly. And then Corona hit, of course, and I joined one of the government agencies to work on the COVID tracing app in the Netherlands. And then I was like, oh, I missed working on a product so much, a digital product. Like this is where my heart beat. Like this is where my heart beats for. Like I want to be in product. So I decided to find a new company. So I did that at the end of 2020, which is called Rise, and I'm actually building a digital calendar. So that's what I'm currently working on. And meanwhile, I of course also do some stuff for the book, but it's no longer my main activity. I'm really focusing on on that new company actually.
So is Rise developed from the ideas in the book, or inspired by the book?
It's mostly inspired, and the reason for that is like Rise is a digital calendar that helps you. Our promise is that you will win back focus time, and the way we do that is by clustering meetings together and help you to schedule new meetings in better places. And one concrete example is that a lot of people I meet schedule meetings in the middle of their mornings or the afternoons, or you don't schedule them yourself, but someone else is scheduling those. And if you are a designer or a writer or you have to do some thinking work, and let's say you start at 8:30, well, a meeting at 10 is going to be basically a disaster for your morning, right? Because at 9 you think like, okay, I have 1 hour left before that meeting, so yeah, I cannot do my real thinking work anymore. So what you will do instead is an hour of maybe some emails, maybe some loose ends, and gone is your morning, right? So with Rise, we really try to change that. But one other key insight for me, and that's where Rise is different from GRIP, is that GRIP is a great guide if you are disciplined. So if you have the intention to change. And a lot of people, to be honest, and those are probably not the listeners to this podcast, but a lot of people are not willing to change, right? They're not willing to change something in their week, but they do want different results, right? So we all want different results, but we don't want to change. And with the Rise, we really try to think about how technology can help to change your schedule without needing to change yourself. So that means a little bit more of automation, a little bit more upfront. So for example, you you say to Rise, okay, I want to have so many hours of focus time in a week. And if that becomes problematic, we'll block it off automatically without needing to step in as a user. So there are some of those experiments that we do right now with our testing users that shift away a little bit from GRIP. But at its core, it's the same. It is that I really believe that a lot of us are not intentional enough about how they spend their week. And a lot of us can get so much more out of their week if they spend, 2, 10, 15 minutes thinking, how can I make my next week more impactful and more matching to what I want. And that can be work, but it can also be your private life, right? I mean, for me, one change that I made this quarter is that I hate sports. So everything regarding to sports, I hate. I hate running, I hate sporting, I hate working out, whatever. But I know that this will bite me at some point, right? We need to move, and we need to spend time exercising and spending time on being healthy. And so this is my intention. So I wanna bring this into my weekly routine. And I started trying to do my workouts in the morning for years, and I always failed. So now in this quarter, I finally made 2 changes. So one is with my accountability partner. This is a topic that I describe in the book as well. I said to him, okay, if I do not run every week for 3 times in the first quarter, I will get a personal trainer in the second quarter. So that's one commitment, and that's going to hurt. And 2, I shifted the time from the mornings to right before lunch. So actually, I went for a run right before recording this podcast because I know this also hurt me because it's working time, but it's way easier to do it, right? So it's in my calendar, so I'm going to do it. So the whole reason I'm sharing this is that my calendar is not just there to crank out more work, to work harder, but it's there to help me shape my week and my time into a way that makes me as a person be more of the person that I want to be. So it's a lot more than just work.
So it's like you said in the beginning. So it's thinking from the end, to imagine how you might be as a wealthy and healthy man in a couple of years. So you have to start today.
Exactly.
Let's have a look at your book. So you have to answer the door.
No, I don't.
Okay, so there are 3 parts actually in the book, and so it's structuring not only your day but the week and the year and your whole life actually. So maybe you can. So this is quite a huge a huge approach actually. So
yes,
please explain a little bit. So how this 3 things came to your mind.
Yeah. So the first section of the book is really what I explained a little bit. It's about having better weeks. It's about your calendar, your to-do list, and handling email and a weekly review. Basically, that's the first section. And the second section is about your year. And I'm very intentional, not only about the week, but actually I'm very intentional mostly about goal setting, because to me, goal setting is a way of, if I want to begin with the end in mind, I need to know what the end is, right? So because otherwise I can't begin there. So I need to find I need to figure that out. But what I also found is that if I don't have a structure for that, if I don't have a system to set those goals, it's not happening, right? Then it's becoming a something that we all figured I need to spend more time on that. So the second part of the book is about, okay, how do I set goals and what kind of rhythm do I use to do that? It's about reflecting on a quarterly basis and then doing an annual review, basically, a topic that some people might know, but it's basically spending time, 2 days I do that every year around Christmas, looking back and ahead, like how was this last year and what were my highlights? It's just a lot of fun to do that and then looking ahead. And I actually also included this chapter about the accountability partner in there, and the reason for that is that you can only go so far alone, and this principle that I saw someone doing in 2014, that's when I started doing that, is actually having a chat of 30 minutes every week with someone. It can be anyone, and basically you go over your week and your goals together, and you commit to something. So, for example, this is the guy that I spoke with about the running, and he said like, "Hey, Rick, I have been hearing you talk about running for months now. Nothing is happening. So, what are you gonna do about it?" And if someone asks you that, well, then you have to figure it out, right? And if you have to only answer yourself, it's really easy to come up with an excuse, or to just ignore it for a long time. And this is really what helps me. And I actually contemplated starting the book with that, like to basically make that the first chapter. But the reason I did not do it is that's quite an investment, right? It's quite a ask. If I would ask you to start doing this from today, you would be like, okay, well, no, because I'm busy. I've better things to do with my time, even though it would be very impactful. But I decided to start simple with the week, then zoom out to the year, and then actually we'll talk about some of the principles that I used to learn about my direction for basically the rest of my life, even though I'm young. But I have some ideas about how to do that, and put those in the third section. And what I hear back from people a lot is that they read the book, they start with the principles from the week, then in, let's say, half a year or a year, they pick it up again, and then they would say, okay, now I have some idea of how to use my calendar. I have that structure in place, so let me zoom out a little bit with section 2. And then after that, they're like, but actually, some of the ideas in the third section are really helpful to me to figure out the direction in the second section, so they will get back to that then even later. So that's a bit of the structure. Yeah.
So you also mentioned it in the beginning. So you're inspired. So this I see a lot of Stephen Covey in there. Okay. So actually, when I read Stephen Covey quite a lot of years ago, so I did the same what you just described with your book. So I took it and I read it first time. I said, well, okay, and then I read it at least 3 or 4 times after this. But I needed some time between the readings, so to get used to his thoughts actually, and to play around with some of his tools to get familiar and get brave enough to change something. And I think this is a good idea to read your book in a couple of steps actually. And you also mentioned Simon Sinek and his question. So why do you do things? So does your book also help people to find their why?
Well, not directly, and the reason is that that I think most people that mention to me like I don't know where I'm going, then I will follow up with the question like, okay, but how does do you have a good feeling about how you're running your weeks? And most of the time they're saying no, I'm completely stressed out. I don't know where to start. I don't have a system, and then I'm always like, hey, start there. Start with having better weeks, because with that, you will gain headspace. You will gain some clarity and some time, and then that extra time you can spend on thinking more about, hey, but why am I actually doing this? And then basically you move to the second stage, which is about, hey, how am I thinking about next year? And what are the things that I would want to spend my time on? And then you get into the question of, okay, why is that important to me? And why am I actually doing that? And that's a whole different ballpark. But most people that I meet struggle a lot with execution and struggle a lot with getting that under control. And I believe you should start with that. And instead of pondering a lot on, okay, why am I here? Because that's very stressful if you have 1,000 emails in your inbox that you need to get answered. Otherwise, you won't get. You might get fired. So you can think a lot about why am I here on Earth? But if you're fired, then and have a problem and have to move out of your house, then that is of no good use, right? So I would suggest to start on the other end.
Okay, so in the beginning of the book, so you say you don't want to tell the people to work less. Because yes. Their families should do this job actually. So I really like this, and they say, well, you're just helping them to get more structure in their life. So I think this is quite unique for a business book, isn't it?
So I think it's maybe more unique for a current business book, because I feel that there's a lot of books out there now that are really talking about this, right? And young people really want like maybe work less, have more time to spend with friends or in leisure mode. And I feel that when I speak to older people, they're much more okay with the fact that they have to work full time, for example. And I get really annoyed with these messages of like, hey, but so actually in Dutch there's a saying, if you meet someone or if you say goodbye, they would say rustig aan, which means well, take it easy and then I see you next time. And I'm always frustrated when I hear that, because I'm like, I want to, like the few hours I have on this planet, I want to experience that to the fullest. I don't want to lay back. I like there's plenty of time maybe, but I feel that I need to have some people around me that sometimes say, hey, there is so much you can achieve, there's so much you can accomplish, there's so much in you, there's so much potential, and it's nice if someone sometimes says like, hey, you can have access to that. And that doesn't mean that everything is changeable, or that you can shape everything, or that everything is under your, like the Stephen Covey circle of influence, right? There's not, like there's some stuff is not, but there's a lot that is. And I want to be an advocate of that group, and actually be the one that hopefully if you put down the book, you feel like, okay, I'm ready now. I'm energized to get started and to have a really good week next week, and fill that to the brim with what I want to fill it with. Yeah.
So this not only the book. So if you buy the book, and maybe I can just hold it in the camera again for the people watching the video. So you can buy the book, but there's also additionally there's some kind of a web service you're offering. Maybe you can tell our audience a little bit about this. So you're offering to coach the people through the process?
Yeah. So basically, and you probably know Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss is one of the also very famous author in the productivity and self-help sphere, and he also said like, hey, the book is just part of a bigger product, and there's also more people that do this. So I was like, okay, how can I help people get more out of this book? And what happens a lot is people buy the book and then they're like, okay, I put it on my little like stack of books that I still need to read, and that stack of course grows. And I don't like, maybe I browse it and I read a chapter and then I'm done with it. So basically what I decided to do is offer an email course that you can subscribe to. That's for free. It comes with the book. And it's in English, by the way, so I did not translate that to German. But what you get is then basically over, I think it's 13 or 14 weeks, I guide you through the book. And on a weekly basis, you get some like small nudges to changes that you can make this week that guide you through. And I think that's, a lot of people have mentioned that they bought a book, they used that guide, and they did not read the full book, and the emails were really helpful. And I'm like, fine. I mean, if that helps you, then it's fine. The goal is not for me to sell as many books as possible, even though that sounds a bit weird. But the goal is that there is more tools out there that help you have better weeks. And if that's that email course that comes with it, then that's completely fine. And as I'm an engineer, I built some tools alongside of it as well. So you can use that app to track your energy levels, which is something that, well, we probably cannot get into right now anymore completely, but if you reflect on your week, there's a lot of highlights in there energy-wise. So what are good days, what are bad days? And if you start to spot that pattern, you can have way better weeks. Because, for example, I know that I need to do my, so if I do my programming time in the morning, what I do now, then, or I should not do, because what happens is I get into a flow state of programming, and then all the administration stuff that I need to tackle, I will push forward, and they will not happen. So, so what I need to do, if I track my energy levels right, I need to first get some administration done. I get then into programming, and then I can continue to do that for the rest of the day. And those are some of the insights that I get from logging my energy levels. And actually, that's a free tool that comes with that with that course as well. So yeah, there's some stuff that comes alongside the book that I'm happy to offer for free.
Yeah, which is quite cool. So So I register for it. So maybe you will coach me the next weeks after it, because
Nice.
so I'm the master of procrastination, actually. So I bet I will learn a lot of from your book.
Super
One
cool.
thing I just yeah, I hope so. I'm a hard nut to crack, I would say in German. No, but one thing I just wanted to ask you. So you recommend to make some kind of like a retro on Fridays? Is this to spot your to look back to your week and then spot the sweet spots, actually? Or maybe you can explain this method again.
Yeah. So it is also not a new idea, by the way. So David Allen is the one that introduced me to that. He introduced that as his weekly review. Basically, what I do every week, and that can be on Friday, but it can also somewhere in the weekend. Some people do this on the Monday mornings, is to find 30 minutes for yourself to think about, hey, how was last week? How did I spend my time? And what I also do is I open up my calendar and I click every item in the calendar and I think about, hey, are there any notes that I need to process? Is there anyone that I need to follow up on? Is there anything that fell through the cracks? Is there any tasks that I need to do? And that basically is so sort of like a sweep over the past week. And then I get into the next week, because then I review the calendar of next week and I think about, okay, if I do all of this, will I have the feeling that I made significant progress in that week, or do I need to spend my time on other things? And actually, one of the key ideas of the book, and that's where the first chapter starts, is that the calendar is not only for meetings but actually for work. So I use that time in my weekly review to actually map out, when will I do which task? So I block off my morning for, I don't know, building a new feature in our app, or I block off an afternoon to find potential new candidates to work with us to hire. And I really like it on that level. I add tasks to my calendar, and then I think about, hey, is this the week that if this all goes to plan, am I happy with this week? And until until I say yes, then I keep on changing and I keep on like shifting that, because I want to, at least before I start, have that sense. And I do all of that in that 30-minute block. And to me, that's really the greatest gift that I can give to my week, to get a sense of, hey, this is what I would like. Will that always go according to plan? Of course not. Of course not. But the thing is, if I adjust the plan, there is probably a reason for it, right? So something happens during that week, and therefore I have to adjust it. And then in the next week, when I review my week, I'm like, hey, why didn't I do what's there? And then I often find that either I disagreed with the priority, something else happened that I tackled actually in that time. And then I think about, well, did I do that intentionally? Did I change that intentionally, or did I respond in the moment way too much on emotional as an emotional response? And very often that's the case. Very often I respond from like, hey, someone asked me something and I'm not brave enough to say no, to say, hey, but this is what I actually wanted to do. This is where my real progress is made, but I actually responded to you. And that review process that I do every week really teaches me to trust that the plan that I made is something that's worth sticking to. It's something that I can actually that's an agreement with myself. So yeah, that's actually what I do in this weekly review at the end of the week. And truly that's something that's that teaches me a lot every week. So I'm actually doing this. I'm not just like I did not just put it in a book and then throw it out there and then could do something completely different myself, but this is actually what I need to survive. I need to do that to keep my own ship on course, as so to say.
Very, very interesting. So I think I will start with this retro. I think this is a cool
super
thing,
nice.
and this is where your book inspired me already. And time is up, unfortunately, but I think we could give the audience a quite a sneak look into your book. It's full of real good tips for everybody. It's full of good explanations, and I think, very helpful tips. So congratulations to you for this book. And I can, who would you recommend this book for? What kind of people should buy this book?
Yeah, so I think this book really works well if you have the intention to make some little changes, and those can be really small. But if you are if you want to get more out of your week, if that's basically something that resonates, then there's definitely something that you can, well, at least get a few things out of that are impactful. What I also seen is that CEOs, for example, or leaders from teams, they will review it and they will say, oh, that's cool because I know a lot of this stuff, I do a lot of this stuff, but it's now available in a way that I can easily pass it around. So a lot of teams a lot of managers and CEOs give this to their team because it contains basically all of the stuff that they also have been learning for the last 20, 30, 40 years, right? So I've seen that happening a lot too. And then what I actually wanted to mention is the experiment that you mentioned on doing this weekly retrospective with yourself. What I actually would suggest is to frame that as an experiment, and I try to do that in the book as well. That experiments are super powerful because they basically allow you to try something and then discard it, to throw it out if it doesn't work. And you can always, and that's basically a good way to end this section from my end. But like this is, you can always go back to the way you're working right now, right? There's nothing standing in between to revert. But only if you change a little bit and try something out, you'll feel the potential, and there's a possibility of growing. So that's why, and I think the weekly review, to start there, to have this 30 minutes for yourself, you can block it in your calendar right now, to think about, hey, how was this past week and how am I going to live next week, is something that's super powerful. So I would recommend that, definitely.
Very well. So Rick, thanks so much for taking the time, blocking your time in the calendar for this podcast. Just repeat. So the name of the book in German is GRIP, die Methode, alles im Griff zu haben, erschienen im Goldmann Verlag, kostet, ich glaube, 16 Euro. Thanks again, Rick. Wish you all the luck with the book, especially on the German market and the international market. So then all the best back to the Netherlands. Rick, enjoy your day. And
thank you so much, Oliver.
Yeah, thank you for joining me here.
Thank you so much.